Shalom Aleichem. We are studying Parshat Noach. This Torah portion of this week, as every Torah portion, corresponds precisely to what's happening in the world this week. And it's telling us that Hashem looked at the world and he found only one person who was perfect and righteous. That is Noach. And we look at our world and we also don't find too many righteous and perfect people. In fact, Hashem had to wait 10 generations for Noach to arrive at the scene. And then, after Noach, there was again a desert, spiritual desert, until Abraham came around. Another 10 generations. So, when Abraham was chosen, Hashem said, finally I found what he calls a perfect dove. A pigeon, a dove, perfect. The Jewish people are compared in the Torah to a dove. And we see a connection in this week's Parsha. Noach sends another kind of a bird, a raven, but it doesn't want to do his will. And then Noach sends a dove, and the dove points out to him that the flood finished and it's safe to come out. So Hashem saw Abraham and he said, I have found that perfect individual nation that is going to save the world, so to say. Noach, in this week's Parsha, he saves humanity. What does it mean, saving humanity? It doesn't necessarily mean that every member of humanity will survive. Rather, what it means is that humankind, what Hashem made, one person, as long as there is one righteous individual in the world will continue to exist, and there is hope for future generations. So now in our times, we have one righteous nation, and that's all it takes. We started with 70 nations in times of Abraham, and now we have many more than 70. Perhaps, let's say a number 200 nations. We have about 200 nations in the world, and out of those 200 nations, how many know Hashem, recognize God, and want something to do with Him? Not too many. And out of those that do recognize God, how many of them go further and say, I'm going to dedicate my life to the way that God meant it? And more than that, I will actually work on myself, because it says Noach was a righteous man, perfect in his generations. Noach walked with God. He was aware of Hashem constantly. And a person who recognizes God, serves God, the next step is that he wants to be like God. God serves as his role model. And our sages say that such a person wasn't Noach, it was Abraham. Noach was almost there, but Abraham went a step further and he said, I'm going to be like God. Not only I recognize God, I listen to God and I serve Him, but I am also going to be like God. What does it mean, be like God? So Abraham showed us one example, and that is, be as kind as God, be as generous, as caring as God. With Abraham going out of his way to invite guests, and not guests that are going to be a good company. It's fun to be with, but no, the lowliest of the low, idol worshippers. He would go out of his way to benefit people, not to invite guests so that I have fun, I have good time, or maybe they'll bring me a nice gift as well. No. These are people that come empty-handed. They come from different culture, different religion. They worship idols that we despise, and still we invite them, we beg them to come, and we serve them. That's Abraham. And so Hashem saw the Jewish people and he said, this is the people who will be like me, like God himself. So the Jewish people don't stop at just recognizing God and screaming out, God is great, like our brothers, the Muslims, do. They don't just recognize God and therefore listen to him and try to think about him, but we, the Jewish people, we also go a step further and we say, how can I be like God? I will look in myself and I will see what separates me and God. You take two objects and you say, like the game the children play, and you have to find differences. What's different on this picture from this picture? Find all the differences. So we look inside of us and we say, let me compare my behavior to the way God would behave. Let me study how God runs the world. He is patient, he's kind, he's strong, and all the characteristics that we can find for God. And I will compare myself. Am I as truthful, honest as God? Am I as kind, taking care of the whole world as God does? Am I as patient? Even people use God's life and health and air and water that he gives them, and they use it against him. And he is patiently supplying them with oxygen and their muscles are moving. If people disrespect me, will I still help them out? This is something we see with the Jewish people. A neighboring country is sending them rockets, and the Jewish people are sending them water and electricity and all the things they need. They're killing their civilians and the Jewish people. This is a Jewish trait, to be like God. So the Jewish people look inside of them and they say, what else can I change in myself so that I become more godly? So much so that at the end of his life, Moshe, our prophet, was called Ish HaElohim. He is a godly man. He is half man, half divine. Why? Because he worked on himself, especially on his humility. Moshe, being described by Hashem as the most humble of all men, means that he worked on himself. It wasn't just a genetic. It wasn't just happened to be born with a good character. He had to work hard. And our sages say that it wasn't when he went to heaven, when he went to Shamayim on Mount Sinai, that he became divine. You have to deserve that God should speak to you. When did God speak to Moshe? When he was a shepherd, pasturing his father-in-law's sheep. And he showed his compassion, his kindness, his patience to the sheep. And God said, "You are ready to be my messenger." How did he develop it? From the young age, some say he was 12, some say 13, some say 18, when he ran away from Pharaoh's palace, from Egypt, until we meet him at around age 78 when he married Zipporah. For 60 years, between 60 to 70 years, he was not in the Torah. We don't know what happened to him, but our sages say that during that time he was working on himself. He was working on his compassion, on his patience. So much so that when he was 80 years old, God came to him. So what we learn from this Torah portion, Noach, is that unfortunately God created a beautiful world, but people did not work on themselves to perfect their character and to become like God. Instead, what happened? The Torah tells us at the end of Parshat Bereshit, Hashem saw that the wickedness of man was great upon the earth. And we mentioned it numerous times that where does evil come? Evil is the product of people. It's an invention of people. God does not create evil. God is righteous and everything he does is righteous. God created a beautiful, perfect world, created a beautiful, perfect human being. Every system in the world is perfect. Every system in the human body is perfect. But we wake up in the morning and instead of saying, "What can I do good today?" Not us, but some people say, "Who can I take advantage of? Where can I get unlawful gain from? Who can I trick, lie, cheat, abuse?" Unfortunately, there are people like that. And they explain it to themselves that really that's how the world works. It's the survival of the fittest, they say. You see, the lion eats the antelope, and the large fish eats the small fish. God created it like this. I am part of the food pyramid. And they behave like an animal or worse. So Hashem says, the wickedness of man was great upon the earth, and every product of the thoughts of his heart was but evil always. So Hashem says, I have to blot out man whom I created from the face of the earth. And not only man, animals also. And insects and even birds. And only Noach found grace in the eyes of Hashem. This is from last week's Parsha. And this week's Parsha, Hashem tells us that by this time Noach had already 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Yefet. After the Mabul, the flood, these 3 sons became the 3 progenitors of races. We can call it the way we learned in school. You have the Caucasian, you have the Mongolian or Oriental, and you have the African. This is just because we're familiar. I don't know if it fits exactly, but just to understand that 3 races came from the 3 sons of Noach, who came from one man, Noach. We are all, the whole humanity, come from one person. It's not that some of us came from monkeys and some of us came from another planet. No, we're all the same. There is no human being that can say, I am greater than you are, because we're all cousins, distant cousins. We all come from Noach. But each one of the 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Yefet, carry different qualities. Shem in Hebrew means the name. A name is a philosophical concept with which we describe the essence of the object or an animal or a person. Ham means hot, hot-tempered. And Yefet comes from the word beauty. So each one of the sons of Noach represented another aspect of humanity. One represented the mind, one represented the heart, the emotion, the beauty, music, and one represented the heat of the body, physicality. To be successful, a human being needs to have all 3. We have to use our mind and develop it properly. We have to use our emotions, our heart, our feelings. And we have to also keep control over our body and use our body to make the world a better place. And that is why, by the way, Hashem sends into the world potential for perfection. If the 3 sons of Noach would work together, they would create a perfect world. This is similar to the story of Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov represented the spiritual world and Esav represented the physical world. They were both sons of the same man, Yitzhak, and if they would combine forces, they would conquer the world in a good sense of the word. They would bring utopia and Mashiach. Esav would show his might, power, financial abilities, military strength, and with it he would cause all the nations to pay attention to whom? To Yaakov, to his brother. And Yaakov would then educate them. But it wasn't to be. So it is with Shem, Ham, and Yefet. Together with philosophy, together with music and art and beauty, and together with physical abilities, might, strength, body, health, humanity would have been perfect, like God wished. We would have made the right choices all the time, have done the right things, created beautiful music and art. World can be a perfect place, but the world is not a perfect place. And one of the reasons is in this week's Parsha. The Parsha starts with people making mistakes, and God says, enough, I'm going to destroy it. And the Parsha continues how God destroys the humanity and the animal and plant and birds and insects, all of them. He saves only the elite small sample size in the teva, in the ark, and then he gives them another chance. They come out of the ark after a whole year. 365 days they were in that teva. An entire Jewish month, year of 12 months, plus another 11 days to correspond to the solar year. The Jewish year is 354 days, and the solar year is 11 days more, 365. So the Mabul, the flood, was on earth for 365 days in order to purify every day of the year, spiritually and physically. Because as the earth goes around its orbit, around the sun, every place that the earth visits, if people are righteous, it sanctifies that place. If people are evil at that moment, that day causes that space to be not positively charged, weak spiritually. And as the earth goes around, it passes through the same area, even though we're all flying, our galaxy is flying, but within our locale, we come back to the same place physically and time-wise, spiritually. And if last year at that time we did something negative, this year at this time we will feel it. This is what we go through when we celebrate our holidays. We're not only remembering, but we're actually living through it, because time-wise and space-wise we're going through the same field and energy. So the Mabul had to last for 365 days in order to purify the time and to purify the space of the entire solar system. And it worked, but people repeated their mistakes. Ham was the first one to fall. And we see that every time that a human being makes a mistake, it's a mistake of character. And Ham was the first one to make this mistake of character. He saw his father in a less than perfect state. His father drank a little too much and went to rest in his private tent. And his grandson, Canaan, wandered in without permission, saw Noach laying there not fully dressed and not covered, and he made fun of him. And he went and he said to his father, Ham, Noach's son. And Ham, instead of rebuking his son, and instead of blocking the door, saying, no one come in, and taking a garment and covering Noach, instead he went and he continued making fun of his father. Perhaps, just to give him the benefit of the doubt, perhaps he felt that Noach should have done better and he shouldn't have drunk so much. But still, it was inappropriate for him to abuse his father. And therefore, Ham was punished. Shem and Yefet, they did what Ham was supposed to do. They protected their father's dignity. They went in without looking and they covered their father. And they stood guard that no one should disturb him. When Noach woke up, he realized that the Mabul didn't help 100%. Within his family, there are still bad character traits. That even though they spent a whole year in the ark, protected from the society, from the negative effect from society, still they didn't perfect themselves. And being in the ark wasn't just a getaway, just a vacation. It was hard labor. Our sages say that Noach and his family worked the entire 365 days. 24/7, they were working. What were they working on? So on a simple level, they were working on feeding the animals, cleaning after them, taking care of the animals. But on a deeper level, they were working on their animalistic character traits. They were working on each one of their traits. The trait of a lion, perhaps harsh, cruel, perhaps anger can be associated with a lion. And they didn't fix it. Ham showed that he has a flaw in his character. Later, Yefet also showed he has a flaw in his character. And later, descendants of Shem, some of them, also showed that they have flaws in their character. But Ham was the first one, the most base, and he received the curse. Now, so far, if we count, we have a few curses in the Torah. And we're only in the second Parsha. In the first Parsha, we have the snake receiving the curse. And then we have the ground receiving the curse. And we have Cain receiving the curse. The snake received the curse for tricking Chava and causing her to eat from the tree. The ground was cursed because it absorbed the blood of heaven. It was also cursed, commentators say, because it didn't listen to Hashem. Hashem wanted that the ground should produce trees whose every part is edible, tastes the same as the fruit itself. And instead, the trees only produced a small part that's edible, the fruit, but the roots and the trunk and the leaves and the branches and the bark, all of that is not edible. And God was not happy with that. But be it as it may, we see that God cursed the snake. He didn't curse Adam, rather he gave him a punishment, a consequence that he has to eat from with the sweat of his brow, and so on and so forth. Hashem didn't curse Chava, rather he said that as a consequence of you listening to the snake, now you will have difficulty carrying a child in your womb, giving birth to a child and raising the child, being dependent on the man. So the man and women got consequences. The snake and the ground got a curse. Cain killed Hevel, he got a curse also. And in this week's Parsha, we have Canaan, the grandson of Noach, the son of Ham, receiving a curse also. Already 4 curses in just two Torah portions. And a curse means that there is something permanent, a permanent blemish. Adam didn't receive a curse because God saw that he has a chance. He can be better. Chava, she has opportunity to improve. But the snake doesn't have. Cain had to die and all his descendants died. No chance.